Hi, everybody. This is Dr. Ariana from Anderson Family Chiropractic and Naturopathic Care. We're going to talk a little bit about how to support your body's ability to deal with headaches and migraines. So I'm going to share my screen real quick. Okay. So just to start off and let everybody know, this video is for educational purposes only and is not intended as a substitute for individualized diagnosis and treatment by a qualified healthcare provider. Communications by Anderson Family Chiropractic and Naturopathic Care are on our online platforms are not privileged communications and do not create a doctor-patient relationship. So today is all about learning and starting to get a little bit better understanding of how we can support our body's natural ability to heal and restore function. Again, we're going to be talking about headaches and migraines. Let me just make I'm going to bring make my head a little bit bigger for you. Hello. So a headache, like a fever or cold hands or feet, is one of the many ways that your body is letting you know that something is wrong with it. And that's a quote by Dr. Layla Marsha Peterson, who is a chiropractic physician, and she specializes in endocrine disorders and anti-aging strategies. And it is. And think about the fact that headaches, I mean, you can get a headache for a variety of different reasons, right? That's one of the reasons why it's so hard to figure out the root cause, right? And I can tell you, for me, I used to, when I was a child, I absolutely had just a hard time figuring out why I would get migraines so often. We went through all of the tests, CAT scans, all the things that they could think of in the medical community to figure out what was wrong. Because I had them almost daily. Just couldn't figure it out. Eventually they just, said they weren't sure and that I just needed to drink more water, which of course wasn't helpful because I already was drinking a lot of water, but, they just couldn't figure it out. So it took me on a kind of a long journey to try to figure this out over time. It wasn't until I was in my 20s that I had actually figured it out. But so 37 million Americans suffer from migraines at least. And 5 million Americans have at least one migraine attack every month. 13% of the world's population suffers from migraines, and 15 to 18% of women worldwide get migraines that total, but 60% of those actually coincide with their menstrual cycle. So there's definitely a hormone component associated with some of these headaches. 6 to 7% of men worldwide get headaches and migraines. And despite its prevalence, migraines are still one of the most poorly understood medical disorders out there. Part of that is because the reasons for it are so wide and varied. And so, it's just really hard to pinpoint and figure it out. And I think a lot of times it's multiple things that are causing the problem. So what are some of the causes? So chemical and environmental stresses. That's definitely something that caused mine that I figured out as I went along. I have some inhibition to my detoxification pathways. I didn't figure this out until I was older, but that was one of my stressors. But some other physical stressors are low blood sugar, liver, gallbladder toxicity, heart and capillary challenges. Food sensitivity and intolerance, that was also one of mine. That was one of the several factors that triggers my headaches and migraines. Hormones, so your pituitary, your ovaries, thyroid, adrenal. I also had an element of this. I had an autoimmune challenge with my thyroid. Again, something that I just didn't know until I got older because it was autoimmune related. Also, sun excess and heat exhaustion. Interestingly enough, that was something that I also had an issue with when I was younger and didn't really associate it with the issue with the migraines. But because of most likely the issue with my thyroid, I was very sensitive to heat. And if I got too hot, I would pass out, and actually did pass out once on you know, the playground at school. I'm sure that poor nurse, she's probably freaking out, but really it just had to do with the sensitivity to heat. So that, and it had to do with my thyroid. So that, but then last but certainly not least is vertebral misalignment. So a lot of you know my husband, Dr. J. He's the resident chiropractor here at our practice. And without question, this is the thing that gives me the most immediate relief from a migraine. I don't really get them anymore. Maybe every, I don't know, 3 to 4 months. I might get, you know, a bioaccumulation where my body's having a hard time getting rid of certain toxins, and it just starts to go through a detoxification, sort of a cleansing, if you will. And as those things are coming out, I will get a really either horrible headache or migraine. And what I found is that I know what it feels like when it first starts to happen. And if I get adjusted 2 to 3 times in that day, I can keep it at bay. It never gets really bad. And so that has been just a godsend. And I can tell you, back in my 20s, when I first started to see a chiropractor, not my husband, it was someone different. I was in there for a completely different reason. And, but in so, you know, getting adjusted, I stopped having migraines. And of course I brought that up to her, and she said, absolutely, chiropractic adjustments can help with that. And so, although in my case, the root cause has to do with detoxification and food sensitivities and some endocrine issues, my immediate relief comes from chiropractic. I don't run to like a pharmaceutical. I just get adjusted, and then I support my body's ability to deal with detoxification, and usually within about a day, I don't have an issue anymore. So those are just some of the common stressors. And then some other triggers to explore. So if you start to kind of food log and just log some of your general symptoms, figure out, when does it happen? Does it coincide with your monthly menstrual cycle if you're a woman? Is it a regular set time during the day or night? Do you need to wear dark glasses every time you go out in the sun, or does that send your head throbbing? Are there certain foods that tend to kind of coincide with these headaches and migraines, such as chocolate, red wine, citrus fruits, monosodium glutamate, that's MSG. That's a food additive that's really not good for you, and it is known to cause headaches. Or aspartame also can be a trigger. Do certain fragrances and smells, such as perfumes, gasoline, or household cleaners, elicit a headache? And that, in my case, that was one of the things. As I got older, there were certain smells that would absolutely cause almost an instantaneous headache. Bleach was one of them. It wasn't an issue when I was younger, but I believe what was happening is, as my body sort of bioaccumulated toxins that it couldn't get rid of, it just became more sensitive and more sensitive and more sensitive to these chemicals coming in. And I would just have, you know, I would have a headache as response. And I will tell you that I've spent many years working on this in my own health. I can be around bleach now, and it doesn't give me an immediate headache like it used to. So I don't use it to clean with, but if I happen to be around it, I don't get that. So just to give you a little bit of hope and that you can support your body's ability to heal, and over time you can see improvement in these symptoms. So a lot of times people will ask me, well, where do all these chemicals come from? Why are we having such a hard time nowadays in getting rid of chemicals? Well, I think it's because we have so many more chemicals in our environment. So these are just some common ones. So pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, artificial fertilizers, bug sprays. So especially these first few here, we have them a lot in between April and now. There's a lot of these being sprayed everywhere. And even if you don't use them on your lawns, most businesses do. So like if you're ever out, like, you know, for work or going to college or anything like that, this stuff is all in the air, and they're not good for us. They're very harmful to our body. So that puts extra burden on our detoxification system. Also cosmetics, skincare, fragrances, laundry detergent, household cleaners. This was very eye-opening when I went out and started to study some of the household cleaners we used that I thought were clean, and they surely weren't. They had good labeling, good marketing, but they really had a lot of really nasty chemicals in them that, among other things, were endocrine disruptors. So what that is, endocrine system is your hormones. And so there's a lot of these chemicals that will actually mimic hormones in your body, and cause you to have dysregulation in your hormone systems. So a great way for you to do research on that is a site called ewg.org. That is the Environmental Working Group. It's a third party. They go out and they rate different chemicals to their toxicity on a 0 to 10 scale, the 10 being worst. And so you can go in, and a lot of common either cosmetics or cleaners, they have two different databases. You can put the name of the product in, and then it will come up, and then you can drill in to see the toxicity of individual chemicals in it. And so that's a great resource. There's definitely others out there, but that's a good place to start. Also consider industrial and automotive chemicals, heavy metals. Those are everywhere in our environment, way more than they used to be. And so those cause a big stress on our body and our liver in particular. Consider off-gassing from synthetic materials such as particle board, carpets, stain-proof coatings, paint spinners. Think about like that new car smell. That stuff ain't natural. And so, and a lot of times, especially if you're getting a new car, you're going to have months where that's going to off-gas. And those things just really are they're just very harmful to our internal processes. Also consider plastics, BPA. Most people kind of know that, but there's other chemicals in plastics, especially if you microwave something in plastic, those chemicals get into the food. So you definitely you want to avoid microwaving, especially with plastics. So here's a couple fun facts for y'all. Over 88,000 chemicals have been created in the last 50 years, and fewer than 300 have been tested for the impact on human health. I mean, it's crazy. And also, in the United States, what we consider okay to be put in our environment is way different than like in Europe. Way more restrictions over there than here. We allow a lot of chemicals in our products and used industrially that really have added a significant toxic burden to our environment. And because we breathe it in, we drink it in, we eat it, stuff gets in our food. So that's where a lot of that's coming from. Also consider, they've done tests that more than 200 synthetic chemicals have been found in the cord blood of newborns. Unbelievable. I mean, and so those are, just think about just before we're even born, we are put under synthetic chemical stress more now than ever before. And also, interestingly enough, indoor air pollution is one of the top 5 ranking environmental health problems in America, according to the EPA. And so that's inside your home. They consider that one of the top 5 ranking health problems is actually inside our home. So, so consider that when you're thinking about what you use to fragrance your home with, what you use to clean your home with, what you use to dry, your clothes and wash your dishes, because there's a lot of chemicals that just comes from that. So here's another physical stressor, low blood sugar. So hypoglycemia occurs when the body's glucose or sugar levels drop 70 milligrams per deciliter. So you cannot only trigger a headache, but also confusion, shakiness, hunger, irritability, and weakness. And so your brain actually needs a constant supply of glucose to function properly. So when glucose levels drop, the brain is among the first organs that is affected. So early warning signs to watch for include sweating, mood changes, yawning, craving of sweet foods. And so some of the things you can do, make sure that you strategically eat every 4 hours. Be intentional to have snacks. And every time you eat, a general rule of thumb to help support your blood sugar levels is that you want to always have a healthy protein, healthy fat, and vegetables like every time you eat. You can have other things in there too, like say you have some rice or whatnot, but you always want to have a healthy protein, a healthy fat, and vegetables. And those three together, they help to regulate and keep a steady flow of blood sugar in your system. So, so liver, gallbladder. So some of the symptoms of that are nausea, general sick feeling accompanying this type of headache, general aches and pains throughout the body, sleeplessness and nightmares, intolerance to oils and fats in the diet, worried, muddled thoughts. Sometimes it's accompanied with pain between the shoulder blades and tenderness under the right rib cage. So those are some of the symptoms of that. How do you support? You can eliminate junk food. Unfortunately, like fried foods, I know and refined carbohydrates, they taste good, but they're so bad for you. And those just right off the bat, you can kind of cut those out. Soft drinks, those things. There was a fella I know, really the only thing that he did was cut pop out of his diet. Now he had a lot of weight to lose, but literally in a month he had lost something like 15 to 20 pounds. So keep in mind, there was a lot of weight that he had to lose, but that's the only thing that he cut out of his diet, just that excess sugar from pop. And so another thing that you can do if you're into juicing and some of the health food things, you could do what's called vampire juice. That's what my kids call it. It's raw beets, apples, carrots, and celery. We have like a little recipe in the office for people that use juicing. It's really good for your liver, and it tastes really good too. Obviously, the color is red, thus the name, the vampire juice name by the Anderson kids. But this is interesting. I think when you think about, a lot of times we don't think about all the nutrients that are in whole foods. So just one small beet, one medium apple, 2 medium carrots, and 2 stalks of celery has all of these nutrients in them. I mean, tons of vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin E, vitamin K, B2, B3, B5, B6, B9, choline, which is like a B vitamin, and then just a whole host of different minerals, and even a little bit of omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids. So I don't know that we think of that, but really our food should be our primary medicine, right? We just aren't necessarily eating the right things. And so this is a way for you to actually get these things in a delicious way and support your body's ability to heal and restore function just with food. So another stressor is physical stressors that might be happening when there's a challenge with the heart. So heart weakness leads to lack of oxygen and CO2 removal, lack of nutrients to the cells, and this type of headache typically starts after exertion. So that's going to be your primary trigger to think that this might be contributing to the headache. Additional symptoms are low blood pressure, gasping of air, weakness or faintness upon exertion, and chest pain. Some things you can do to help support that, obviously eliminate junk food. That's going to be almost in every category. Fried foods, sugar, having elevated blood sugar really, it does put a big stress on the heart. Also artificial sweeteners, refined carbohydrates, and trans fats. Trans fats are pretty much horrible for every part of your body. Most people, at least, by this point, do know that trans fats are to be avoided. But that's anything that you see on a label that says hydrogenated oil or partially hydrogenated oil. I would just set that back and not eat that. That's absolutely not good for you. Definitely not good for your heart. And ensure that you're getting enough B2, B3, B6, essential fats, and whole food calcium, magnesium. I will mention that all of those things are actually in that vampire juice. So you don't even have to take a multivitamin for that. You could just, do some food. Some physical stressors when the capillaries are under challenge. A lot of times a symptom of that is that people will have painful enough headaches that wake them out of a sound sleep. Also, they can have crushing head pain. They can have capillary fragility, such as chronic bruising, bleeding and puffy gums, slow wound healing, and also GI tract ulcers. How do you support that? eliminate sugar. You're going to see that that's also a common theme among all of these. Artificial sweeteners are also not good for you. You can find natural sweeteners such as stevia to help replace that. Refined carbohydrates like flour, those actually elevate blood sugar even quicker than sugar, trans fats, and overcooked foods. Ensure you are getting enough bioflavonoids, whole food vitamin C, and vitamin A. We have great whole food supplements for that, but one thing that you can just add into your daily diet are peppers, especially red peppers. They are really high in bioflavonoids, vitamin A, and vitamin C, and they're very delicious. And so that's just something that we've made a part of our daily fare, just to add that into our diet at the Anderson home. We do have a bruising nutritional support handout if somebody does have a kind of chronic bruising. People that any of the patients in the office, if you're interested in having that, just let us know. We can certainly print that out. And it has specific foods that have vitamin A, vitamin C, and bioflavonoids in addition to red peppers. Just let us know. So food sensitivities. Now this was definitely one of my triggers, and I didn't figure this out until I got into my late 20s, early 30s. But mainly it's caused by faulty digestive tract. Symptoms can include protein malabsorption, carbohydrate malabsorption, and fat oil malabsorption. So some of the symptoms of that: when protein is not being digested and absorbed properly, you'll get a lot of foul smelling gas, bloating, and flatulence. When it's carbohydrate malabsorption, there's a lot of gas, but it's usually not horribly foul. You'll definitely know the difference. Protein malabsorption, it smells really bad. And carbohydrates, obviously, flatulence doesn't smell like roses, but it doesn't smell almost like putrid. And there's usually a lot of it. Sometimes it can be painful. Sometimes you can also have constipation associated with carbohydrate malabsorption. Fat and oil malabsorption, oftentimes people will have nausea, burping, and a feeling of sudden sickness. So those are some of the things you can kind of keep an eye out, that those could be leading back to that there's faulty digestion. Additional symptoms are diarrhea, brain fog, fatigue, and some of the things that you can do, obviously, is remove the offending foods. If you're not sure what they are, you can have blood work done. I don't know that those are incredibly accurate. We actually have some tests in the office that we use and on my side of the practice that are very helpful and very inexpensive to help people figure out what they have as far as offending foods. And then you can help restore digestion through the use of enzymes, probiotics, and the like. But keep in mind, our goal is to help support your body's ability to restore the function, the natural function that it has. We usually want to use supplements to help bridge the gap between how, where you're at now and where your body's healing in the future. But the goal is always to help support your body's ability to do this naturally. So this is just an interesting slide. If you ever want the reference, we can give that out to you. But this was a study showing it was evaluating groups of endocrine disrupting chemicals and their potential impact on female reproduction. And it just goes to show some of the things that are in our environments that we just don't even think of that actually do harm our hormonal regulation. Dioxins come from industry. Phthalates are in plastics. Flame retardants, but keep in mind, that's in clothing. I mean, a lot of new clothing actually have flame retardants in there, and they're horrible for your endocrine system. Phenols, polychlorinated biphenyls, like in oil, pesticides, herbicides, those types of things, hydrocarbons, and then phytoestrogens, which are commonly in soy. And so soy can, you want to be really careful with soy. If you eat it, you definitely want to get organic, but even that, there is a lot of phytoestrogens in it, and it can actually disrupt your own natural hormone levels if you're bringing that in on a regular basis. So these are some of the things that you can look for if you are suspecting you have some hormonal triggers. So the pituitary gland, oftentimes there are recurring random headaches with no distinct pattern. The ovaries tend to occur during ovulation and or menstruation. A lot of times there's big mood swings, emotional instability accompanies that, and sometimes temporary outbreaks of acne. I will tell you when this happens, typically the underlying issue is blood sugar. When people are having this sort of challenge, when they reduce or eliminate like sugar and reduce their starches, these symptoms start to alleviate. So there, at least what we've seen clinically is there's typically a blood sugar challenge when this is happening. Your thyroid, it's characterized usually by a headache present upon arising in the morning and will wear off during the day, mid to late morning. Suggests that the thyroid fails to respond from a resting state to wakefulness, but eventually picks up metabolism as a person sustains activity. Your adrenal glands, characterized by a headache and exhaustion in late afternoon, sometimes also accompanied with low blood pressure. And these are just some things to support it. So reduce your chemical heavy metal exposure from cosmetics, skincare, plastics, cleaning products. So you can go out to that one site, the ewg.org, to check that out. Reduce stress. We have a whole lecture on that. Honestly, high cortisol levels cause all hosts of problems, including headaches. So that's a toughie, but it's definitely worth trying to reduce that in your life. Maintain blood sugar, healthy insulin levels. So, eating protein, fat, and vegetable every time you eat, even your snacks, to help to regulate blood sugar. Whole food vitamin C helps support your adrenal glands. Whole food iodine can help support your thyroid. And exercise. I know it's tough, but we need it. You need it. You need it for so many things, but it aids in circulation. And so, if you're not moving, like think about like your lymphatic system, which is how you get rid of waste. The only way to keep that moving is through movement. You need to exercise. So that in itself can help support, reduction of some of these symptoms. Excess sun. So this is when you're having too much vitamin D because you've had a lot of sun exposure. It can result in excess calcium in the blood. So that's one of the things that vitamin D acts as a bit of a hormone. When you have tons of it in your bloodstream, it's going to cause your body to bring calcium into the blood because that's one of the things that it triggers. And so, unfortunately, when you have too much calcium in the blood, it thickens the blood, slows circulation, and deprives muscles of ionized calcium for contraction, which can also cause muscle cramps. So drink lots and lots of water and consume essential fats from olives, some butter and cream, obviously organic, nuts, seeds, tuna, salmon, those types of things, especially before sun exposure. Because one of the things you need, so if you have a lot of vitamin D being produced by your sun exposure, and that pulls calcium from your cells into the blood, to get that calcium back into the blood, you need to have essential fats, certain kinds. And so if you don't have enough of that in your tissue, you're going to have a hard time getting that calcium back into the tissue, which can lead to what we mentioned up here, thick blood, and then also muscle cramping. So one of the best things is just make sure you having things that have those essential fats before you have the sun exposure. So last but not least, vertebral misalignment. Obviously, we are a chiropractic shop. Subluxations of vertebrae, it actually does impinge upon nerves that can absolutely cause a headache or migraine. Often worse at the very base of the skull. Those are exactly where mine used to resonate from. I would feel them all over, but it was that base of the skull is where it started from, and it would just sort of radiate out. Recurrence may persist due to laxity of the ligaments holding the vertebra in proper alignment. So that can be one of the exacerbating situations. Lack of muscle tone may also contribute to an inability to keep that and hold that alignment. Can also be due to toxicity or detoxification, and in my case, that was the issue. So get chiropractic adjustments regularly, and don't try to adjust the spine on your own. This actually usually leads to further misalignment and laxity of the ligaments. So those are some of the things that my husband wanted to make sure that we brought into the presentation this week. So this just shows you a visual of kind of what happens. I'm not going to go into this this slide extensively, but this shows you why oftentimes misalignment and the pain starts right there at the base of the skull. And so this concludes our presentation tonight on headaches and migraines. And if you have any questions whatsoever, please don't hesitate to send us a message on our Facebook page. Stop into the office. You can set up a consult if you're interested in having more strategically designed clinical nutrition and figuring out maybe what some of those food stressors are. You can certainly give us a call at our office. It is 419-878-8312, or for sure you can go out to our website, which is www.afcwellness.com. And we have a lot of resources out there to tell about our services and how we go about helping support your body's natural ability to heal and to restore function. So I hope that you guys have a wonderful, wonderful day, and we'll talk to you soon.